Greetings, booktubers, and welcome to Sunday Comics. Greetings, booktubers, and welcome back to Grammaticus Books. Welcome to a Sunday Comics edition of Grammaticus Books, where today we're going to talk about the state of modern comic books. How is modern comic books doing today here in the year 2026? Have modern comic books been able to pull themselves out of the death spiral that they have been in for the last several decades? So what brought this video about? Well, what led me to make this video, what was my driving force, my idea behind it is I had checked out of collecting modern comics, of buying anything new off of the stands back in the mid-1990s. And the reason I checked out of comics in the mid-1990s is because they started to suck in the mid-1990s, and they have continued almost uninterruptedly to suck all the way up here into the year 2026. And I just said, peace out. However, here in the last couple of years, you've had a development within the comic book industry that's kind of given it a breath of fresh life. I think we might actually be in a little bit of a comic book renaissance, and that's being driven primarily by the rise of independent comic books that stepped into the void that was left by Marvel and DC when they sort of imploded on each other, imploded in on themselves, and left this void in the comic book industry. And one of those independent comic books was Titan Comics. Titan Comics got the rights to Conan the Barbarian, and they've been doing a very solid job with Conan the Barbarian. And they rebooted Savage Sword of Conan as well. And I started collecting those new off of the stand. And that's what led me to the idea, well, Titan Comics is doing a good job. You have these other independents. How is Marvel and DC responding? Have they pulled out of that death spiral, or are they still there with one foot in the grave? And what I did to sort of test this theory to see where things were is I went down to my local comic book store and I bought a couple of comic books. I got 3 of them, one from Marvel and 2 from DC. And then we're going to take a look at them here. I've read through them and I'm going to grade them, judge them, and then conflate out from these 3 comic books the state of the entire industry. Yes, I know all the flaws inherent with doing that, but I haven't the time to go back and read dozens and dozens of comic books and catch up on it. So with all the flaws inherent in that system, we're going to go ahead and do it because it's going to be fun for one thing. And the other thing is we're going to apply a little bit of common sense to it. And I went out and I picked up from Marvel and from DC, one of their flagship comics, their 2 brightest stars that they have, under the theory that one would hope that Marvel and DC would put their best writers and their best artists on their flagship comic books so that you're getting a good idea of the quality of what you're getting from Marvel and DC these days. So what are the 3 comic books that I picked up? Well, the first one is Detective Comics number 1102 here, otherwise known as Batman. That's comic book number 1. The second comic book is Marvel's best-selling comic book and their flagship, which is Amazing Spider-Man number 15. Obviously, they've rebooted this, and I believe that Marvel has 5 separate Spider-Man comic books that they currently put out, which is another reason why I stopped collecting comic books back in the 1990s, because I didn't want to have to buy 5 separate comic books in order just to keep up with my favorite superhero. But we got Amazing Spider-Man number 15, and then this one caught my eye. I wasn't planning on buying it, but it was the New Gods. New Gods number 12. New Gods originally created by Jack Kirby back in, I think it was the 1970s. And the New Gods was fantastic. I loved New Gods when it came out. Jack Kirby just came up with a fantastic universe. And you've got New Gods in here, and you have another one of Jack Kirby's characters that's also in this reboot here of New Gods, and that is Mr. Miracle Scott Free. And here's the original Mr. Miracle number 1. Written by Jack Kirby, conceived by Jack Kirby, drawn by Jack Kirby. So you know I'm a Mr. Miracle fan. And here's New Gods number 1 as well. Also written, conceived, and drawn by Jack Kirby. And just look at this cover here. I mean, who would not pull that off of the comic book shelf back in the 1970s? And let's check the date on that here. Yep, 1971, as a matter of fact. And look at this opening page here that you get, it's just Jack Kirby goodness. And Jack Kirby came up with a fantastic universe in which to put his main characters. This is Orion from the New Gods. But Jack Kirby wasn't necessarily the best comic book writer. Stan Lee was much better. He wasn't horrible, but he wasn't great. But he had a great universe and he had great artwork, which is what drew me into the New Gods and got me interested in seeing how the New Gods is doing these days over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about these three comic books here at sort of the meta level, what's good about them, what's bad about them. And you've got the good, the bad, and the ugly in these three comics. And then I'm going to transition over to an overhead camera and sort of try to draw out some of the things that I'm talking about here right now with you guys. So the good, the bad, and the ugly with these three comic books, which is which, we're going to start off with the bad. And the bad is, unfortunately, Batman Detective Comics number 1102. This comic book is bad. It's not horrible. It's not horrible by any stretch or means of the imagination. The story isn't horrible. The art isn't horrible, but it isn't good either. It's just plain bad. So what's going on with this Batman comic book? What makes it bad? And the first thing is the plot. And the plot is basically just stealing a James Bond spy plot and then merging it with an old Batman, a Scarecrow plot, and kind of fusing the two of them together and doing neither one of them very well. Gotham has been infected with a virus. That once the virus comes to fruition, once it germinates and infects everybody, it's going to eliminate all their inhibitions, and then they will tear Gotham City apart. Does it sound very familiar? Sound like an episode of Batman versus a Scarecrow? Yeah, it's exactly what it is. And this plot is being executed by a billionaire living overseas, who is this eccentric sort of supervillain. And Batman decides to go out and meet him one-on-one as Bruce Wayne, where he's going to gauge him in a high-stakes poker game in order to feel him out, just like you would at the opening of any James Bond movie, where James Bond meets in a casino with the head bad guy, and there's a giant crowd around him, and they have a high-stakes poker game. That is precisely how this comic book starts off. Bruce Wayne goes over, he picks up a date, and they go to the palace mansion of the supervillain here, who is named Louis King. Louis King, and he's a billionaire living overseas somewhere in Europe. He's King Louis, the sun god, is who they have. I know, it's terrible. And the other thing is his alter ego, his supervillain ego, is the Lion. And he's dressed all in gold. He's got gold hair. He's dresses all in kind of golden suits. He's the Golden Lion King, King Louis. It's terrible. But the other thing that's bad about it is that they have this poker game between Bruce Wayne and his date and Louis King by themselves in his palace, where they play this high-stakes game of 21, of blackjack. But there's nobody else in this casino. There's not a casino. They're just in his house playing poker. There's no one else around them. They know who each other is, and it's two billionaires exchanging money. There's no stakes involved, and when you take out all the people and you take out all the suspense, it just sucks all the oxygen right out of the plot, and it's boring. It's boring, and it has no tension. It's got nothing driving it forward. And then it immediately jumps from this high-stakes poker game right into the showdown with the Lion and Batman in his Batman form. Bruce Wayne switches over into his alter ego Batman, and he goes and he confronts the Lion, and they have this knockdown, drag-out fight in this factory where he's building these antidotes. He's making this virus. And at this point, the art kind of takes over, and the art is bad because the artist in this doesn't understand how to draw action. He's afflicted with a disease that I like to refer to as Rock'em Sock'emitis. Rock'em Sock'emitis from the Rock'em Sock'em robots from back in the day, where you had the two robots and you would have them box with each other, and they would stood there upright and they would just throw their fists back and forth. And that's what the art looks like here when it gets into the action sequences. And the artist does not understand how to draw dynamic action. He just doesn't understand it. And again, it just sucks all the life out of the comic book. And you wind up with superficially a decent looking comic book, but it's just not there artistically. and then the plot's not there, and you wind up with what's a bad comic book. And that's number one. So that was the bad. Let's move on to the ugly. We're going to save the good for the last. What is the ugly? The ugly is this comic book right here, unfortunately. It's the New Gods. This comic book is downright ugly. It is fugly. It's fugly from the writing perspective. The art in here is actually pretty decent. The artist in here, I'll call him out when I switch over to the overhead cam because it deserves to be have some attention drawn to his name. He's actually a decent artist, but the plot in here is incomprehensible. It is utterly incomprehensible. I tried to read this comic book 3 times. I just got confused. I got bored. My eyes started to glaze over because I couldn't figure out what in the wide world of sports was going on in this comic book. And I tried. I made an honest attempt to figure out where this writer was going with this story, and it is utterly incomprehensible. That's all you can say about it. And I gave up after 3 times of trying to figure this one out. And this one definitely goes down as the ugly. Which gets us to the good. And the good is, I am happy to say, the good is Spider-Man. Amazing Spider-Man here is actually a good comic book. The art is crisp, it's bright. That's another thing here with Batman. The art is very dull. It's very drab. A lot of the color has just been sucked out of it. And with the color sucked out of it and the action sucked out of it and the plot lacking, again, it just reinforces this as just a very bland, kind of stale comic book that falls into the bad category. This comic book is bright. It's got bright colors. It jumps off of the page. The comic book artist understands how to draw action. You're drawing Spider-Man. You had better know how to draw action. You better know how to put a figure in action if you're drawing Spider-Man. And the plot is good. It's dynamic. It's funny. It holds your attention. This is actually a good comic book. So Marvel wins, DC loses in the battle of the comic books and the state of modern comics. But that's the state of these comics here. Let's switch over to the overhead cam. Hopefully I can get it so the lighting is decent. The last time I did this, I had a little bit of glare, and we got gloss pages. So I'm going to do my best to get rid of the glare, and we'll go through and I'll show you examples of what I'm talking about here with these 3 comic books. All right, and here we go with the overhead cam. We're starting off with the bad, with Batman Detective Comics 1102. And the first thing I want to point out is just how dull and muted and drab and gray the colors are in this comic book. You get this one nice bright panel with the ocean and the sky, where Batman is going overseas in order to confront Louis King in his palace for his game of blackjack. But then the rest of it, it's just very muted. You just have these dull, toned down browns, blues, grays, and it just makes for a comic book that just does not jump off the page at you. It doesn't leap up at you. I know it's Batman, and it's supposed to be sort of a darker theme, but they need to put some brighter panels in here in order to liven it up, and that doesn't happen. Here you've got Bruce Wayne with his date, who has gone into the private gambling casino of Louis King, who's right here, and they're having their game. They're having their game of blackjack with high stake numbers between the billionaires, so who cares? And again, the plot just sort of sucks the life out of it, sucks the life out of the room. But there's something that the artist does here with this panel that I think is actually quite good, and I will give credit where credit is due. You've got the casino here with the card table, the blackjack table in the background, and then you have the dialogue panels laid out here with these 6 panels in this arrangement. And these panels are the cards in the card game that are laid out on top, representing those cards as the panels. And I did think that that was quite clever. I will give some credit there to the artist for that. So the card game continues, and then Bruce Wayne follows Louis King to his supervillain lair for our Bond plot to kick into gear. And then you get the reveal of the Lion, who is Louis King's alter ego, his villain ego. And you've got this sort of meme of a villain pose, a very overused sort of trite pose. It's been done a lot better. I've seen this with the Kingpin and Spider-Man. And what you want to do is you want to put your perspective down here. You want to give it a worm's eye perspective that makes the villain seem more imposing. And instead, the artist has put it head on. And then you come over here, and you can really see the rock'em sock'em itis disease that I was talking about,
where the figures are just standing straight up. Batman's straight up throwing the punch. The Lion King is straight up. And then down here you have almost a manga panel with both Batman receiving the punch and the lion throwing the punch just straight up. And this really looks exactly like one of those robots out of Rock'em Sock'em. And then it continues over here. Everybody is still straight up and down. Nobody is off balance, which gives you dynamic energy and gives you that action that you want. And then you have an extremely awkwardly drawn kick where the reception of the kick is awkward by Batman. And this is just a very badly drawn kick. He's pretty much up and down, but it doesn't look right. It just looks very awkward, like you couldn't throw this type of a kick. And that's what makes this a bad comic book. And then we've got the ugly. And the art in here, like I said, the art in here is actually pretty decent. It's just that the plot is utterly incomprehensible. The opening pages, you have a Mike Mignola clone who's doing the artwork and not doing it very well. But then after that introduction, you go into the main artist, who is Evan Cagle. And Evan Cagle does a very good job. He does a great job at conveying sort of a demigod-like atmosphere in here with these individuals and the new gods. And he knows how to draw. It looks really good. It doesn't look like it's been over-embellished by a computer graphics program, even though it probably has. He's talented enough to make it look like it doesn't. And it's just got a nice feel to it. And here you've got Scott Free from Mr. Miracle, another creation of Jack King Kirby. And just you've got dynamic action. You've got people who are off balance. You've got great portrayal of the action, and it holds your eye. And you've got a little bit of crisper colors going on here. It's a little bit brighter. And just look at these pages right here. They're very well done. So if it wasn't for the plot in here, if it wasn't for the writing, this might have actually been a good comic book. But the writing is so horrendous that it has to go into the ugly category. Which takes us to the last one. We'll end on a good note, and that's Spider-Man. Amazing Spider-Man number 15. You've got Peter Parker in here. He's actually in space. It's a little bit of a flashback. He's in space with Rocket from Guardians of the Galaxy. And Rocket has gotten him into a bind. He has a massive gambling debt to this alien here who runs this online gambling arena, combat arena for a money pay-per-view arena. And Spider-Man has to fight in the pay-per-view arena in order to pay off Rocket's debt. But look at the colors in here. Look at how bright the colors are. Look at how bright the pink that you've got going on. You've got these bright greens. You've got these nice gold yellows. And then compare and contrast that to these dull muted colors that you have through this entire Batman. This jumps out at you. This does not jump out at you. And look at the action. Look at the pose here on Spider-Man. It's excellent. And what a great panel here. This is a fantastic action panel. You've got this dynamic posing here with Spider-Man. You've got these panels here, kind of like these shattered panels that are drawing your eye across here to this phenomenal kick here for this kind of coup de grace kick that Spider-Man is delivering to Betty. The name of the monster here, this giant alien monster, is Betty. And it just delivers that KO kick. And then compare this kick here. We've got this beautiful action, this great action shot with this dynamic energy going into it on this KO kick. And then compare that to this kick. And the contrast is stark. This one, it just looks awkward. Batman receiving it looks awkward. He looks awkward delivering it. It looks like you would just fall on your ass, that it would have no power to it. It isn't posed correctly. The person who's drawing this does not understand how to pose a kick and how to portray action, as opposed to this artist who implicitly knows how to make this look good and how to make it leap off the page and how to give it that energy, where this one just has no energy in it at all. And that is Spider-Man. This is an excellent comic book here. I do recommend it. And let me show you one other thing here real quick that'll help make that point about the Rock'em Sock'emitis and how you portray action. This is How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way by Stan Lee and John Buscema. It's a how-to guide on how to do comics that's geared towards a younger reader. I have a number of these books. Most of the other ones are geared towards a higher level reader, an older reader, and a much more complex. And this is better than any of them by far because it boils down and distills in order to know how to effectively draw comic books. And one of the core things in that is the name of the game is action. And here's the panel that shows you what you want to do when you're drawing action. Here's a figure that's throwing a punch, and it has it in the different frames of the punch going forward, and it shows you where you want to draw your panel in order to convey that dynamic energy. And the best is when he's all the way back, when he's furthest off balance winding up, and when he's furthest off balance all the way forward after having thrown it. These are your two best panels right here for throwing the punch because they're the most off balance. And then these here in the center are your weakest panels. And this is where the entire Batman comic book resided with all the action. It all took place right here in these center panels, and it should have been taking place out here where these panels are, where Spider-Man and New Gods were taking place. And I just wanted to show you guys that. And that's it. That's it for the overhead cam. And now we'll switch back.
All right, and that is the good, the bad, and the ugly, the state of modern comic books here. If you're collecting modern comics and you have a comic book that you like, that you think is a modern comic that is good, let me know about it down in the comments section. If you've got modern comics that you don't like, there's something about it, let me know about it down in the comments section. And with that, I'm going to wrap this one up, and I'm going to say take care, be safe, and I will catch you guys next time.